We are joined now by a man who knows the NCAA tournament fairly well. He is Doug Gottlieb at Gottlieb Show. You can listen to him on many of the same stations. In fact, we now have 600 of them, affiliate stations. Welcome into Spokane, Washington. And he will be, I'm sure, breaking down the 4 days of the NCAA tournament on his program later in the day. Doug, I started off the show saying, to me, the NCAA tournament story in a sentence, Big Ten wildly overrated, Pac-12 wildly underrated. Fair or foul to distill the first 4 days within that context?
It's impossible to dispute that based upon the outcomes of these games. I think there's a bunch of things. Now, I joined you a week ago Monday, right?
Yep, that's right.
And I
lost us all some money on Wichita State, yeah.
I did, but my overall, I said I thought the Pac-12 was massively underseeded. I think I said that on your show. Did I?
I can't remember, but we'll give you credit.
I've been saying it for a while. I thought Oregon and SC especially were going to be wildly underseeded because they are really talented and they got pros and they both were shut down at bizarre times and had mismatched lineups and whatever. And look, if you have an NBA player and you have a pretty good team around him in the landscape of college basketball where there's not a ton of NBA players, you're going to be better. And then they've got some good matchups as well. I actually didn't lose you money on Wichita unless you took them on the money line because they did actually cover.
I did take them on the money line, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, look, if you go to Bet Rivers, most of my stuff I gave people SC last night over Kansas.
Yeah.
And that, just Kansas is not that good this year. So, look, let's start with the Big Ten. I do think a portion of it is, yes, the Big Ten is overrated, but why, right? So I'll give you the football analogy because I know how huge you are in college football, right? To win in the Big 12 in college football, okay, you have to be able to defend the spread offense, right? Everybody runs in the Big 12, and you got to beat Oklahoma, you got to beat Texas, you got to beat Texas Tech. They just get out and sling it. Well, but to win against Alabama or to win against LSU, the reason Oklahoma hasn't been able to crack the code in the college football playoff is because those teams are constructed differently, and they're just so much bigger and stronger, and they can run the ball and they can throw it. Yeah, they run the spread, but they also run the ball at times.
Styles make fights, right?
Well, it's not just styles. It's like, look, in the Big Ten, go through the laundry list of Big Ten teams that fell this weekend, right? You have Kofi Coburn, who's just a monster, 7-footer, 285, and Luka Garza, who's just this big, scoring big guy. Well, no one in college basketball has big guys. Yep. And if they do, they're like Evan Mobley. They're sticks and they're perimeter players, whatever. Yep. So to win the Big Ten, you got to be able to defend this big, physical, brooding conference. And to win in college basketball in the NCAA tournament, it's not guard play. It's not spacing. It's not shooting three-point shots. It's not speed and quickness. And they don't have it. They just don't. There's no NBA guards in that league, point guards in that league. There's some wings that are really good. So I think part of it is the building of the rosters. I think also a good portion of it is we take snapshots of November and December, and we're like, that's who these teams and conferences are, right? And there was a limited non-conference. Well, the Big Ten has like the highest recidivist rate. They got all these kids back. So if you have all these guys back, for the most part, you're going to be ahead of the curve. You also have older players, whereas teams like Alabama, like they're fitting together new rosters. And you look at Oregon, like that's a new roster every year. You look at USC. Again, those are all – they got a bunch of transfers, and their best players are freshmen. And so they're a little bit slower to come along, but it doesn't really matter to what you do in March. And then if we're also reasonable, like, look, the first day everybody's like, well, the Big Ten stinks. Okay, like Michigan State had the ball at the end of regulation with a chance to win the game. Ohio State had the ball, a chance to win the game at regulation. In overtime, Purdue, they have free throws to give them a lead, and the same thing in regulation to win the game. So I don't love the overarching Big Ten sucks, Pac-12 is awesome based upon a game here or a game there, but it would take an absolute imbecile to not point out this was a crazy disappointing weekend for the Big Ten. And for the Pac-12, it's much maligned in college sports. so much so that when their teams suck, they fire their commissioner. for them to.
I mean, I started off the show, Doug, saying that this is the best the Pac-12 has had, and that, let's be honest, most people, the Pac-12 is great at like swimming and diving and field hockey and like all these sports, right? Like Stanford, back before they started cutting sports, used to win the whatever the President's Cup trophy or whatever they call it every year because they're so good in so many different sports, right? But most people define whether or not you are good based on what? Two things: your football team and your men's basketball team. And look, sometimes baseball, women's basketball, there are other sports that get some attention, but by and large, whether or not the athletic department is successful is judged by two sports: men's football, obviously, and men's basketball, right? And this is the most success that the Pac-12 has had within that context since all the way back in Pete Carroll, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, and Lindell White days at USC.
Yes, what's fascinating about it is this. The best basketball programs in the Pac-12 over the last 20 years, all except for UCLA, are not in the tournament, right? University of Washington has
been
produced
great.
pro after pro, and they've been good.
And
they were
Arizona, obviously.
Arizona's out because the NCAA, and they were just okay this year, right? Cal, which is what my brother was there for 6 years. They went to 4 tournaments. They got a ton of pros. That should be a great job. They stink. And Stanford used to be they were in a Final Four. And with Mike Montgomery there, they were in the NCAA. They were the number one team in the country for a short period of time. And I think they've been to one tournament in the last 12 years. So part of it is, and this is what happens in football, right? When SC's down in football, the conference, it's like when Texas is down in the Big 12. It doesn't have Texas and Oklahoma have to be up for the Big 12 to be taken seriously. SC has to be good. Well, in college basketball, Arizona and UCLA, and then Cal and Stanford and Washington. So it's a little harder for us to go like, wait a second, hold on. Colorado? I mean, Utah, by the way, has been a great program. They fired their coach this year.
Yeah.
And so, and look, then there's a little bit of the Oregon State was a way better than people thought, but they weren't a great team, and they played great the first 2 nights of the tournament. So there's a little bit of the randomness of the tournament in order to help prove our point. But you're right. Like, this has been great for the Pac-12, and it's really going to be interesting to see what happens. I'll also point out that, and then part of it is, again, I had a brother who was the longest, until this year, was the longest tenured assistant in the Pac-12, is that league has lost more players early to the NBA than any other league. The difference in it and like the SEC, it was almost everybody out of Kentucky. Like, they had all the one and dones. Obviously this year it looks like Sharif Cooper probably leaves Auburn. A couple of the kid at LSU.
Tennessee's got 2.
Right. So, but the difference is in the Pac-12, they had, you go through almost every one of those schools. Washington would lose. They lost 2 from last year. That went to, one was a first-round pick, one was a second-round pick. And if SC has it, or UCLA, they lose guys to the pros all the time. So there's a reason why they haven't won a championship. But this was, without any question, in the last 20 years, this is the best weekend for Pac-12 basketball in the NCAA tournament.
Okay, so we're now to the Sweet 16.
Yes.
I know that it stinks for VCU. We talked about this. We didn't want to curse anybody. I don't want to curse anybody again. But do you feel, and I don't even know what the protocols are that are in place now, but we're down to 16 teams still in Indianapolis now. VCU didn't get to play. Oregon got to advance without having to play that game, but then played their mind out against Iowa, just an absolute offensive onslaught. Do you also still have – yeah, that was. Do you still have a great deal of trepidation about COVID now, or do you think the NCAA, now that we're down to 16 and that these teams, in theory, have been inside the bubble of Indianapolis for a while, are you cautiously optimistic that everybody's going to be able to finish now?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't know if you saw they changed the wording from the bubble to a controlled environment, right?
Yeah.
About it. And I'm actually supposed to record a pod here later today with I'm not going to say one of the members of VCU's traveling party who tested positive, and we'll try and drop it tomorrow. Look, I've been cautiously optimistic. I'm like the opposite of most of these writer guys. Like
Oh my God,
at 43.
Can you imagine?
Like,
yes.
Oh,
Can you? Let's go there for a moment
they
first.
Like wearing masks.
Can you imagine getting in this year of all years? There are relatively few people who get to watch the games in person. If you are a media member watching a game courtside, and your obsession during the course of the game is not all of the incredible athletes and the play calls and everything else that's going on the court, but your obsession is how much mask discipline is the head coach showing, which how crazy is that? And let's also be honest here. Like, I hate stupid for show unnecessary moves, and in my opinion, when every player on the court is not wearing a mask, requiring the head coach to wear a mask inside of whatever you want to say, a bubble or a controlled environment, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I don't blame him. Like, if you're trying to coach kids, it doesn't surprise me at all that you would be, pulling down your mask and yelling, because how many times you're in LA or you traveled a lot though because of calling games. So you probably, how often are you in a restaurant where you're trying to talk to a waiter or a waitress, and they're trying to talk to you from behind a mask, and you're just like, I'm sorry, can you just pull us down, tell me what the special is? Like, it's almost impossible to hear somebody in a mask.
How many times when you walked out with your mask have you ordered something from Starbucks, and they're like, what's your name again? What's your name? It's
yes.
Look, you want to talk about for show? You have these sideline reporters that aren't near anybody.
Yes.
They make them put their mask on.
Yes.
Like, what are we doing?
It reminds me of, remember San Francisco before they kicked the 49ers out of being able to even play in Santa Clara County, I think it was. Not only, the people who were calling the game in the press box had plexiglass between them and had to call the game wearing masks. And they had to what are you doing?
To even get into the building. I don't know. But that was the Pat Forty thing over the weekend, whatever.
Yeah. So for people who don't know,
I'm optimistic as a human being. I'm cautiously optimistic we'll be able to pull it off. They were done last night. The games don't start again until Saturday, so it gives them a little bit of buffer. The protocols, as I know, is that the kids are in their hotel rooms, or they're at practice, or they have they got a prison yard for them. They can go
it is crazy.
Hey, you can go get some fresh air there, kids. They can run around and do their thing. The truth is, as much as we act like this is some terrible thing, I played in this tournament 3 times. You don't go walking around anyway. Your coach usually tells you to go get off your feet. You bring your video games and you game it up, and now you get your cell phone. Kids aren't looking up from their cell phone anyway, right? So it doesn't really matter. But yes, I think we're close. We're close. If it's me, I don't understand why. If we get to the final, why don't they just do it in Hinkle and open that sucker up? Have you ever been there?
I have not. I've heard it's amazing.
It's really, really, and they redid it, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and they did about as good a job of a redo where they kept everything, and they got it up to code, and it's a cathedral is what it is, and because of the movie Hoosiers, it would be, to me, if I was running things, I don't think it's a hard call. The only reason they play them in domes is to make money from all the people there, right?
Right.
It's just easy math. Well, you're not going to make that much money out the people there. So
that's right.
Move it to Hinkle. You already have the camera set up. This ain't hard. You got 2 weeks. Move it. That's the only thing that I would change.
All right, let's go to the Sweet 16 itself. When you look at we talked about coming into this tournament, obviously Illinois is out, and they were one of the favorites, but the Zags were, Gonzaga, a substantial favorite. They obviously have won 2 games with relative ease. Same thing could be said of Baylor. To you, now that you've watched all these different games take place, are Gonzaga and Baylor still the 2 best teams in the tournament in your mind?
Okay, so I got to do this for you because we're on in Spokane now, okay? Gone. Your turn.
Gone. Yeah.
Zeg.
I'm never going to get it right. I'm gonna say Gonzaga for the rest of my life.
If you want to say Gonzaga, that's fine. But if you really want to do it, you go Gonzaga.
People have been telling me that I need to say Gonzaga, and then as soon as I say that, the other half of people.
You did it.
I know. But when I say that, do you know what happens when I say that? Everybody else out there says I'm saying it wrong. So you really can't win because most people. Yeah, I understand, but
Just
most
say Zag.
people.
Just say Gonzaga, like the Zags. It's not the Zogs, it's the Zags. Gonzaga. And, okay, anyway, nobody's beating Gonzaga in this deal. Sorry. Maybe Loyola Chicago. That's the team that could. I like Baylor a lot. I think they're really good. I just think Gonzaga's better, and Gonzaga's got a great draw. Like Creighton likes to run up and down and shoot threes. They got no shot. I think you're gonna run up and down with those guys? Yeah, they're better at like every position. And I like Marcus Zagorowski. He's a nice point guard. They're just better. They have a great draw. They're really good. They're confident. Barring some sort of health issue, like they're awesome. Plus, they got Drew Timmy's got that Fu Manchu, the Drew Manchu. I thought you'd dig that. That's really.
Yeah.
I can't grow that at 45, let alone at 21. It's pretty impressive to watch him do that. I will tell you though that and this is it was like basketball porn to watch what Loyola Chicago did to Illinois. Right? I mean, in terms of like connectivity and coaching and defense and what Loyola Chicago, man, they're really, really, really good.
So were they wildly underseeded? Is that fair to say? Like everybody's pointing out that they beat Illinois, but it also feels like that shouldn't have been around a 32 game.
I guess not. Look, here's the thing. I've been in the 8-9 seed twice, and both games we played Duke one year. We were a 9 seed, and we played Auburn one year. We were an 8 seed, and we probably should have won both those games. Some little dude named Scott Pullman ran around and kicked our ass. And then we didn't box. Remember Chris Porter from Auburn?
Oh, yeah, I remember. Big afro.
We didn't box him out in a tie game late, and we lost. I think they were underseeded. I do. But it's really hard. There wasn't really a non-conference schedule. They're not playing like talent. The Valley's not nearly as good as they used to be. And you know what? If you're Illinois, you got to beat that team. If you're really good, you should beat that team. And they got trounced, and there wasn't really. I was really surprised there weren't adjustments made, but they just got beaten by a better team. It was like, I don't know what the final score was, like 17, but it felt like 50. It was like, oh my God, they're getting embarrassed. And I saw Illinois the week before, and they were great, but it's more the style by which they played, the adjustments, and the implementation of what a coach says, and then doing it and doing it over and over again. It was really, really impressive. I do think they can give. I think there's a chance they get to a Final Four. I do. Baylor's really good. I think Gonzaga's the best. I've been saying Gonzaga the field all year, and they got a good draw as well. I think they're going to win this thing and make me look like I'm smart for the first time ever.
Let's go to Loyola again. Porter Moser, if you were Indiana, he's going to be coaching now his third game, maybe his fourth game, fifth game, who knows. I like their chances if you look at that bracket. And I think you do too, to potentially make a run based on how good they looked against Illinois. If he keeps that run going, even if he loses, I mean, he's obviously had two really good tournament runs. He doesn't have to keep the run going.
Yeah, what are you waiting for?
Should he be the Indiana hire?
I see no reason why not.
Do you think he takes that? Or here's the other question.
I don't know. You want to know the sneaky best job available?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know who do you think has the top two budgets in college basketball? Take guess. Budgets.
I know that my guess would be Kentucky and Louisville.
Kentucky and Duke, I believe, are the two biggest budgets. You know who the third biggest budget is?
No.
Marquette.
That's insane.
Marquette.
Why is their budget so high?
They don't have football.
Yeah.
They got Jordan Brand money. They play the NBA arena. They make tons and tons of money.
They sell that place out?
They pack it. They got the McGuire Center is a great on-campus facility that has like an arena in it and a practice gym and everything they want. It's a sneaky great job. And oh yeah, by the way, look, the Big East, Nova's dominant in the Big East, but would you rather take on Marquette? You're a private school guy. You've been in private schools. There's not the red tape of the public schools, right?
Yeah.
Would you rather do that, or would you rather go to Indiana where they're chasing the ghosts of championships past? Right? And oh yeah, by the way, you got Ohio State, Michigan's rolling, Illinois is rolling nowadays as well. I mean, what do you want? Do you want to play those teams twice a year, or do you want to be at Marquette? I think you take Indiana because, if you're a basketball guy, and he grew up and he played at Creighton, you're like, man, if I could be a head coach at Indiana, it's like in the five best used to be Carolina and Duke and Kansas and Kentucky and UCLA. The one thing about Indiana that I really like is you're not following a legend, right? I don't want to be the next head coach of North Carolina. I got to follow Roy Williams. I don't want to be the next head coach of Duke. I got to follow. You don't have to follow. I don't want people to follow Coach Cal at Kentucky. Are you crazy? Like the guy wins like 80% of his games and is in the Final Four every other year except for like this year, right? At Indiana, you're following a guy that everybody didn't like. Just didn't like him, and you're following a guy after that everybody didn't like. So I do think that Indiana's a great job. I would take it. I will tell you, though, that Marquette is like a sneaky stalk horse in landing a Porter Moser. I don't think he stays, but I also think, like, if you can make another Final Four, 2 Final Fours at the same school, like, do you have to leave? I don't know. Like, somebody offers you $3 million and you make $1 million, I guess you do it. But I don't think you have to do it in this sport. Mark Few told me a long time ago, like, he got offered the Indiana job, and I think there was a long time where he was like, they only call you once, right? There was a plane waiting for him after practice, and like they only offer you the job once, and I turned it down, and he turned down UCLA. But now he's built it to where he can pick his schedule, he can beat up on his league, he can recruit the kids that he wants to recruit. Like, you don't have to recruit kids.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. On top of that, could Loyola be a Gonzaga-like team? I mean, if Porter Moser decides, hey, I want to stay here and just try to build something special in Chicago, could he do it?
Yes, but yes. Could he? Absolutely. Especially now the way the Valley's constructed, it's not nearly as good as it used to be because you need those 16 wins a year, and then you can go out and get your head beat in every once in a while by playing the Big Ten schools, the SEC schools, and you don't have to cut corners. You don't have to bite the apple and recruit the kids that don't belong. As long as you recruit what's called, in basketball we say OKGs, right? Our kind of guys.
Yeah.
As long as you do that, you'll be fine. And yes, you can. And at some point you do go like, do I really want to move my kids? Do I really want to, Chicago's an awesome city. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I know Porter. I know everybody in basketball is talking about where's he going to go. But I do know that, Mark Few is also the example of you can go somewhere else where you can just stay where you are and win a ton of championships. And maybe they win the national championship, maybe they don't. I will tell you that Mark Few, if he doesn't win a championship, he'll be super bummed for like a day, and then he'll be fly fishing the next day. And he's competitive as hell, and they'll get after it and try and get more players or whatever. But, he's had like one issue, I think, ever at Gonzaga. Remember they had a center who got caught with shrooms.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
it was like the most Palouse, Eastern Washington story ever, where a kid got pulled. I forget what the kid's name was. He's a center. And he got pulled.
We're going to look it up. Can you come back to us for 5 more minutes? Because I want to ask you a couple more questions. Yeah. All right. So we'll bring back Doug, break down the Sweet 16. We'll also look up who got in trouble at Mark Few's program, the only guy pretty much that has gotten in trouble. I think he's right about that.